you?
Yeah.
Well,
Hey,
I was just telling Eric that I can't get the Facebook piece to connect. So
I don't know what that is. We've been having this problem for a while now.
Yeah, and she's got, it looks like we've got every kind of connection live on Facebook, Workplace by Facebook, then a custom live streaming service, you know.
Yeah, we just need go live in a group. That's all we need to do. Like, don't get fancy, right? Just regular old live.
Just keeping it less fancy. Let's see.
Is that better here? Because I have crazy light in my house here.
Hello, there our guest is. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
How are you?
Good evening.
I'm doing fine. I'm like rushing. I'm busy telling the house is crowded. I'm like, I told you I was going on a Zoom call, right?
That's like a famous line.
The kitchen is right behind me. So, you know.
Oh, yes.
You're in the hot spot, the command center of the house.
Right. That's right. It's like,
you know what? Let me tell you something. Like, I got 2 teenage boys. They walk around the house with their shirts off and stuff like that. That's what it look like.
Shirts are good. Pants are not optional. That's we do shirts.
I have a younger teenager, so he's walking around with like it's wintertime with his hoodie and like he's going out to styling and take your sneakers off. What are you doing?
You're like, we're on lockdown.
I'm wearing shoes in my house.
Yeah, exactly. They're supposed to be on the mat. Or these go in my room because they have to sit on top of the box.
Oh, wow. These are house shoes.
It's like, you know, those are ones he may resell or something. I don't know.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, you know what? Are you going live in your group at all?
If you could share it there, because I don't have it. I don't know if it's on your wall. I don't know where it's.
Yes, I shared it there, and I will share it again.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Let me go to
because we're having issues with trying to connect it directly. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can't share because again, if it's not on.
All right, let me go.
So
now.
But their registration they should be able to log in.
Yeah.
Is it on your wall or in the group?
Yeah, it's in both. It's on my wall. It's on the wall in our group. So it's everywhere that you could.
Okay. Let me just
link into. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're having a difficulty connecting that live portion just won't let us broadcast there. I don't know what's going on.
For some reason. Yeah. But it is 7:30.
We'll post the replay for you as well once we get that.
Yes, right. We are recording.
I don't see it, so I may have to share it later.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
we can do real quick. Let's see if I can see it there.
You got people coming in.
People are coming in. I see Daniel's in the house. Oh, is that Kendra? No, I'm not sure. I'll take that back. Well, hello, all. Good evening.
No, I don't see anything yet.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not. She's saying it's not posting. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. From us, Ariane, definitely, it's not working. So we are here. Well, all right, you guys, we want to get started.
Sure.
We're still kind of setting up here. All righty, well, welcome. Looks like we got some folks coming into our space, and you know it's 7:30-ish on a Wednesday. It is Blockchain Chat with Black Blockchain Consultants. I'm Dr. Keisha Waddell, Executive Director of our Center for Blockchain Studies here, joined with my panel and our esteemed guest today, Deidra McIntyre of Black People and Crypto. Also, we got our BCI officers, Eric and Talisha. You want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Talisha Shine. I am Vice President of Blockchain Consortium International, and I'm also the resident in-house tech. So here we are, what we're doing. We got somebody live coming in, great view right there. So we are going to be talking to one of my lovely friends, Sheree. And I'm so happy to have Ms. Deidra here because she is one of the very first people I met with regard to getting into the crypto space. She was the person who I was like, hey, I like that article. can I talk to you? And she was like, girl, call me. And so that's what we've been doing ever since. So glad to have you here tonight.
Yeah, I think that was the first Black blockchain consultants that we met in person anyway.
Yeah, that was the conference, but I talked to you before that.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet people face to face after those online connections.
It is.
Yeah.
I feel like you know them, but it's like you have to introduce yourself because
You
you've been
got to
talking,
do
and then you go, "Hi, what you gonna say?" Because I know you. I just talked to you yesterday. But
yeah, it is weird like that. I'm glad you said that because it's just you kind of feel like, especially when you have in your mind who they are and different things like that, you just feel kind of weird.
But the weirdest thing is the people who forget that they have icons as their profile pics, and they come up to you and start talking to you, and you're like, and I know you're from, and it's like, me, I'm the cat.
It's me.
Oh, okay.
You.
But yeah, we do talk.
Oh, you, okay, right?
The name and the face doesn't match.
Hilarious. And then we got Eric there.
Yes, Eric Spence, president of Blockchain Consortium International, also a music publisher, and also the Titan of Tokenization, as the ladies like to call me. I am really looking forward to this discussion with Ms. Deidra, and yeah, looking great. Happy to be a part of this tonight on this nice Wednesday night.
Yes, and it looks like we've got Cherie peeking in a little bit there
Yes.
to some degree, maybe by mistake. I didn't want to be on here. She wasn't feeling well. But anyway, we'll jump right into, Talisha, did you want to kind of control the process?
I just wanted to really have a conversation with Ms. Deidra, and we would love for you to introduce yourselves because we have some new people in our group, and so we'd just love to get your background and again, tell us a little bit about Black people and cryptocurrency.
Sure. My name is Deidra McIntyre. On Facebook, you usually see Deidra Ramsey McIntyre. I throw all my names up there because it's easier for people to find me. Apparently, there's a plethora of light-skinned Deidra McIntyres and Deidra Ramseys, a lot. Wow. And we all kind of look alike. So I stuck that one time, and it just kind of stayed as my full name. I'm originally from New York, but I haven't been in New York for almost 21 years now. I live in central New Jersey. My background is actually journalism, so I was a journalist for many years, but I early on was writing about technology and ended up working for a mom and pop software development company on Long Island at the same time that I was working for a local publication, and that's how I was first introduced to the internet in probably summer of 92 or 93. And my part-time gig there was really to help developers find free software. So it's kind of funny because at that time this is when people were using CompuServe and using AOL as gateways to these tools of the internet because we weren't really using the web that much. So I was telnetting. I don't even think I remember how to telnet anymore. And I was searching Archie, which was the first search engine.
Yes.
And they would send me specific directions. They were like, look, we just need this bit of software to link this to this, and I can complete this project. So I had a lot of downtime when I was at this little company because they were an education software company and they had, basically business had slowed. So when I wasn't busy with projects, I was kind of exploring around different things and I discovered bulletin boards where people have these different discussions. So that kind of was my introduction to the internet, so to speak. And by the time I left the part-time job and the newspaper that I was working at to go full-time newspaper, I decided I wanted to have a technology column. And so I was basically covering everything. I went to Brooklyn, actually, it's a publication called the Spring Creek Sun. And I was actually covering everything, school news, judo, or whatever. But I would always have a technology piece about how you can use the web, and the New York Times was online, and the first e-commerce websites or Smart Food Co-op, which was out of MIT, for MIT's campus. So wine.com was one of the first, but it was, at that time it was called Virtual Vineyards, but wine.com would be the first, second retailer. So I was constantly finding what was going on the web, and that kind of catapulted me to studying HTML. There were some free classes for some women. There's an organization called Web Girls. This woman named Elisa Sherman started. And how I found out about it is because I was freelancing. I wrote a small piece for Essence magazine, very small. I think one and only time I ever wrote for Essence was a feature on this woman. And they had another article on another woman in there. She kept talking about this group called Web Girls and how she learned coding for free, magic word.
Yeah.
So I started going into New York City, and I would eventually meet the subject of the other woman who was in that article, since passed away, named Evelyn Archer. She used to be live in Harlem, and she was very much in technology. And she just kind of was like, well, you need to go to this meeting, you need to go to this meeting, you need to know about this group. So I kind of got a crash course from this one woman of what this big space of this World Wide Web space was. And then that led me to have my first .com job, full .com job. So for the newspaper, I was the 12th hire at a company called the Globe.com, which was a precursor to MySpace, precursor to Black Planet, the social media site. If you ever look on the web for a reenactment series called Valley of the Boon, which was put on by National Geographic, it featured Genesis Broadcast.com, the Globe.com, and I think 2 others, but it was reenactment, but essentially was the founder's story of the 2 founders of my .com that I worked for. And I was pretty much the 12th hire, which their first New York City hire when they left Cornell University. And I did 2.5 years. So going from 12 employees to 250 employees in 3 different countries. And I was pretty much burnt out. At that time, when I was leaving, Black Planet was just getting started. It was just about to get started. But because the New York space, the Black New York space was so small, I already knew Omar. I knew Vibe.com was getting started. I remember interviewing there and telling them and the more I told them I didn't want the job, the higher the salary became. So it became a running joke. And I was like, I don't think you really understand that I gotta leave. I gotta leave this space because I'm burning out. And I ended up recommending a friend there, and she was like, I can't believe you walked away from like $90,000 and all this kind of stuff. I was like, look, I can't do it right now because they get on my nerve. I'm stabbing them with a pencil. I got to get out of here. So she took the position, and then I went and took some time off, did some temping for a while, and then went and got my master's degree in education and went from one fire to the next. So I became a public high school teacher in Brooklyn. In Brooklyn for 5 years. So it was like a trial by fire, but at least it was something completely different. And I could teach an introduction to computers class, even though my specialty was ELA and students with disabilities. That one had some really highs and lows. The highs were that, I really did love crafting lesson plans the way that I wanted to. Franklin K. Lane, it's a Franklin K. Lane campus. It's no longer a Franklin K. Lane high school because all the schools in that building are now charter schools. But so I was there the last 4 years that it was a full year high school. And my master's thesis was using games as a teaching strategy. Awesome. So, and I was a teaching fellow. So I'm going to school at the same time that I'm teaching. So I'm experimenting with the themes of reducing stress by teaching content to students that in a less stressful manner. So less stress, just lower, kind of like Boy Scouts and all that kind of stuff like that, all kinds of different activities. So, you had some highs and lows, falls on your faces and some successes. And then after my 4th year, I came back to New Jersey and taught 1 year high school in New Jersey. And then I got pregnant with my 2nd child, and I was like, I don't really want to go back to teaching with 2 children in the house. Yeah. So now we're talking 2010, and I still hadn't heard of Bitcoin or anything like that. Around 2013, for some strange reason I had, but I ignored it. I thought I saw some video, some gamers talking about it, and I thought they were talking about a gaming coin, so I dismissed it.
Yeah.
2016 came around, and a financial investor contacted me. He's actually in our group. He pops in every now and then, and he says, I know, and I worked with him back in the .com days, and he says, I know you're good at putting things in plain English. Can you write something historical piece? I want everything you could tell me about this Bitcoin thing, because I'm being bombarded with people who want me to invest in stuff. I don't know what they're talking about. So that was probably September 2016. I finished that project in about end of October, beginning of November. And by that point, I was like, oh, what was I doing? So now I'm watching all of 2016 and all the rise of 2017 going into the summer. But as a part of that project, I had seen a number of Black people. Like even when I was writing the project for him, he's Black. So I was thinking, I was like, these are some of the Black people in the space, So I stumbled upon Sinclair Skinner. I had stumbled upon Eduardo Jackson, who had his Black and Bitcoin blog. I had stumbled upon a couple of other people, I can't remember. And I threw them in the document. And then I looked at my own friend list and I said, like, nobody's talking about this. I can't really talk about this because there's no one to talk to. I saw two people that were talking about it. And so eventually, by the time we were heading into September of 2017, actually before then, that summer was when BitConnect was really hitting kind of hard. And I kept getting friends who weren't technical inboxing me about, and I was getting angry because I was like, why would I pay you $100 a month when I could go to an ATM? And so I'm busy trying to educate them through DMs, and they're not hearing me. They're like, no, I want you to come to this meeting, and da-da-da. And I was just like, really?
Have a great opportunity.
Exactly. So I was like, I had to start something and start something publicly. So with the two people, Taiwan Aziz and Kelvin Anderson, that I did see every once in a while post something independent. Now, Taiwan, Kelvin and I read a lot about Kemet in history because that's been a passion of mine since I was 8. So I was already talking behind the scenes about history, but I never talked to them about Bitcoin, but I just observed what they were doing. Mm-hmm. So, and then the guy that gave me the assignment from the financial investor, Bob Ponce, he was also from the .com world. He was actually head of World Wide Web Artists Consortium, which was like the preppiest, whitest tech group all in New York City. And he was the Black president. So I was like, I'm gonna be friends with you. So he's the one that got me in touch with Franklin, who's the financial guy that I had to do the document for. So I said, Bob, I want you to be admin. I'm gonna get these 2 other guys from my Kemet world because at least I've seen them posting something, it's on their radar. And let's just slam all our friends in and see what happens. And so it's grown like from there. We named it with intention, Black People in Cryptocurrency, mainly because we wanted to make sure that our community was understanding the space. And we didn't want it to be so Bitcoin specific. We were well, the Boyce Watkins was doing a lot of talking off and on about, but he was only really talking about Bitcoin. And every time we would watch his videos, we were like, he could be saying so much more. And he was letting other people do the talking, and they were just talking about Bitcoin. So it was like, okay, we got to talk about it. At that time, there were some 900, close to 1,000 cryptocurrencies in September 2007. And now there's more than 5,000. So we were like, let's just name it cryptocurrency, and then we'll see what happens. And we'll just keep posting news. Now, shortly after the group launched, because people I started getting inboxed about people who had ventures and business. I think one of the first strangers to DM me was Sarita Hines with Trustabit. And I was like, wow, I never really looked at it from the point of so many Black startups. Now I knew Eduardo Jackson had his, because I had been a part of his original demo team, the first cinema draft. So he's the one that started the Blacks in Bitcoin blog. So I knew that he had one, but I was like, I hadn't really thought about this idea that other people had startups. And they wanted to talk about them. So that kind of started the focus of the group changing to, how do we support these startups and how do we educate people at the same time? Because they are scrambling for funding, and their businesses are not always Black specific focused. I mean, Trustabit is an airline industry blockchain solution that has really, it's not Black specific at all. We don't own airlines. So how do we support them and make sure their ideas aren't taken, they aren't stolen, and that they have the wherewithal to try to get noticed and get funding so they can move to the next level, at the same time giving people Bitcoin 101, so to speak. So that's kind of the long history of me into this space.
But you talk about that with regard to the education piece. Again, it kind of just, Bitcoin is probably most foremost what most people came into the crypto space understanding. A lot of the people that came here were looking for that information, like, hey, I heard about this thing. And the thing, they didn't even know what it was. They're like, I don't know if Bitcoin is a platform, is a coin, is money, what is it? So when you talk about that, having those kind of conversations, what did you find that our community specifically, where was that deficit? Like where was that hard kind of loss of how do I get you to get to that point?
I think the deficit is the same as the mainstream. They have 2 trains of thoughts. All right, convince me this is not a scam. That's one. And the other thing is, how do I get rich?
Where is the money?
That covers everything in terms of a beginner if they've heard of Bitcoin first. So I kind of go back to my journalism roots and give like analogies. So I have an article that's on Quora that it was a response to somebody asking, how do I explain to my teenager what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is? And I said, oh, well, that's kind of easy because, they understand that they play games and then they earn a currency in those games. And with those currencies, they can buy skins. I'm still really not clear what a skin is, but
help me with that part.
Sometimes he wants fiat to do it. I said, you don't get no fiat. So you just keep playing exactly. To whatever level so you can buy the different skins that you wanted, the weapons that you want. I said, well, imagine if you played that game and that currency that you earn, you could actually go spend at McDonald's, or you could buy your sneakers, or you could do whatever, or you could save it, or you could, give it to other people. So once people get that, even if they don't know the workings of Bitcoin itself in terms of, the reason why it works as a security, the reason why you can hack between transmissions and the ownership of the keys, they don't understand. They kind of understand creating of a money and a digital money, so to speak, and holding a digital money if you've done it within a video game. So I started explaining to people basically using kind of analogies like that. And then sometimes with the more advanced, I'll say something like, well, if you understand how the traditional internet works, it's a copy and paste environment. So if we were to take this screenshot right here of us, and I send it to each of you, and then you send it to 100 people, nobody loses that screenshot. I have the original, you have copies, you send it to your mom, you have it, and go on. But that doesn't work for money. So if I were to take a screenshot and it was the only one, I could either split it apart and each of us have a fragment of a piece of that selfie, or I can send the whole to someone else and I no longer have it. So Bitcoin and other blockchain cryptocurrencies are something that change the rules of data on the internet. They make it so that you can send it in whole or in part to someone else, but you no longer have the original. So they kind of understand that difference, and that before we needed an intermediary, you needed your online bank account or your money transfer service or whatever to verify I'm going to deduct from here and make sure the other person has it. And then just to explain without explaining, running nodes and all that stuff, but it's just managed by people's computers. You put the computer in the system and you can put your computer in the system. So kind of keep it very, very basic, not necessarily using the vocabulary right away. Because once you understand it conceptually, and that's kind of like what I used to do with teaching, you understand something connection, then I can break it apart and teach you the vocabulary later.
Yes, Deidra, I was just going to ask you. I'm actually by profession a high school teacher of special education.
Yeah, that's right.
So my master's is in special education and doctorate in instructional technology. So, and it's so funny when you were explaining your background. I just wondered how much of that experience on the high school level, particularly with students with special needs, helps you break down abstract concepts and to, concrete examples like that.
That's the trial by fire, especially those 4 years in Brooklyn, more so than the 1 year in New Jersey, because we would always say Franklin K. Lane at one point long before I was there, maybe 10 years before I was there, was considered the most dangerous school in New York City. By the time I was there were metal detectors and everything else. And we always say it was the kick-in school. Like you got a new fresh crop of kids like halfway through the year because they got kicked out of all their other schools and they ended up at Lane. So you had to figure out, because students with disability, and I did mostly self-contained classrooms, some inclusion classrooms. They were just moving in that direction. I think by my second year, where it was being more inclusive, but the first 2 years was self-contained. You just had to find very different ways. And I was never I would speak teacher term. I was never a teacher that looked the first month. I never really looked at the IEPs intentionally because I didn't want to peg. And one time it got me in trouble though, because one kid, I'll never forget him. I was like, we were doing some charting stuff and he was just like, they're very polite even at Lane, even with dealing with, emotional disturbance and stuff like that. Things I liked about the Brooklyn kids, they always say miss this, miss that. Miss, can you give me the blue pencil? Okay, I'm born. Miss, can you give me the gray one? And I was like, look, he was like, Miss, I'm colorblind. Do you read my IEP? I was like, oh, I played it off. I was like, I forgot. I was like, now to have a school, but I didn't do it because they were going to go into the rest of the world anyway.
Yes.
And people won't have that background. So I wouldn't get it until like at least, you know, figure out how to do it and then look at it a little bit later and then try to figure out, you know, different strategies. So I always think about that when I'm approaching different people. How does this person learn? Do they learn visually? I mean, because you're better to pick up clues. What is it better if I send you a PowerPoint document? Is it better I pick you up a telephone call? Because some people don't respond well to my like long texts. And so it's always in my back of my mind. How does this person, even as an adult, how does this person feel most
process information? Absolutely.
And I still find that, which is why my master's thesis was games. Still find that games kind of break things down very easily. I don't know if you were there, Talisha, for the second Black Blockchain conference, but I did a keynote and I knew going in that everybody was going to do slides and stuff and whatever, and I didn't want to do that. So I had a phone app game, and the first thing I did I was like, let's play this game. And it set the stage. It was fast. I was like, none of you are going to know the answers anyway. It's multiple choice. You could guess. And we went through this game really quickly. And then after the game was over, I did an assessment. I was like, okay, so what was different about that game? And somebody said, well, you chose some people who were less known. You know, because I was asking, you know, who has a startup that does this and who does this and da-da-da. And I said, were they less known? And then they said, yeah, because you didn't have Vitalik Buterin, and you didn't have this. I said, oh, okay. Well, can you make a guess what some of the people were? And so I had some Nigerians here. So it was like, some of them was African. I was like, and African people are what? And it was like, Black people? Somebody said, they said, were they all Black? I said, they sure were. And we had Black Blockchain conference. And
her game was a hit. It really was.
I trust it was.
It was like better to teach through that experience.
Absolutely.
Because it was fun, because people wanted to win. Dagon Jamari was a ringer, and he hadn't seen it, so he really did win it. And I kept telling Ryan Cooper, who's coincided with me, I was like, stop getting the right answer, because he knew the game.
He shouldn't be allowed to play. I tell Ryan all the time. He could not play. He should have been disqualified. That's my biggest.
He didn't win anyway. Jamari did win, and Jamari hadn't seen it, so Jamari was like, I was doing deductive reasoning, and was like, whatever. I was taking 2 out, and then whatever. So he did fairly win it, but I had to tell Ryan, like, stop, because you like scoring kind of high, because you could see the board. We were having the running board. It was people had their nicknames in, and they could see where they were. But it was better. Now, mind you, after it was all done, that's when I originally released the BBC Black on a Blockchain list. I released it at that conference, and then waited a month later to actually formalize it and create a blog and release it again in October. Actually, with some more names, because I picked up names there. So it was at 100 people at that conference, because that was the goal, to get to 100 people. And then by the time I released it for the first time, it was like 125 or 130. And now it's like, you know, so people every once in a while will trickle in and it's like, hey, I got somebody else or whatever. It's at 170. But the real message was, we need to go to whatever conference we're going to. We need to talk about us sometime. You can't always talk about, okay, well, what's Binance doing? Well, where's our Binance? What's Coinbase doing? Well, where's our Coinbase? You can't constantly put all your eggs in the one basket of saying, well, when these companies rise, they will hire me, because the past is prologue. And for me, I've been 50 this year. So for me, 20 years ago, as a 28-year-old me in .com, I was very much like, who can I bring on? Who can I bring to the globe.com? Mind you, the time I was at the globe.com, there was no Google, there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, but these companies have risen. Now that was Microsoft, there was definitely IBM, there was definitely, LinkedIn was just getting started. But so most of the internet as we know now, there was Yahoo, because we were actually competing against Yahoo. Yahoo had a probably called Yahoo Groups, and our competitor was GeoCity, but there was no MySpace, there was no Facebook. So we've seen these companies come with young startups, and they grow and they balloon, and their diversity is garbage. No, you cannot be smart enough to get a job there. You cannot be. The job that I honestly believe the reason why I got the job that I got at theglobe.com is I think I was the only one that applied. I saw that ad in the New York Times, And I said, you know what, let me send my resume in. I sent it in. It was around April this time in 1997. But I don't remember the specific days, but the turnaround was quick from the time that I sent the call to go to the interview. The day that I went on the interview, the person who interviewed me, it took me a tour, and there's wires hanging everywhere, a couple of ponytail guys or whatever. And, you know, this office is going to do whatever. There's 11 of us, and so-and-so's not here, and da-da-da-da-da. And this is what we do. And it's internet, social media, like, kind of like AOL, blah, 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 blah. He gives me back my resume after like about an hour and a half interview. And he says, when can you start?
Awesome.
And I had another interview. I had another event that week at the Long Island Newsday had some type of minority, whatever, fair. And I was still tossing between whether I was going to stay in journalism. But this dude was offering to double my salary, full health benefits. I get to work in Manhattan instead of Brooklyn. So I was like, huh. I said, but it was too much. I said, let me get back to you, because I actually told him I said, I have another interview. It was probably that fair was probably on a Thursday. So this was the beginning of the week, maybe Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Well, you got to let me know Friday, because I will want you to start Monday. Okay, I'll let you know Friday. So I go to the fair in Long Island, and it was basically just a job. It was a meat market. It's like, bring your resume, people sit in the booth, ain't nobody hiring. I got to meet, I remember getting to meet Joel Dreyfus, because he was working at, that was my moment. Joel Dreyfus was sitting at the Newsweek or Newsday, or I think it's Newsweek he was writing for at the time, big writer. But nobody was hiring. It was just some ordinary job fair that you just send people around to. So I said, okay, I'm gonna have to call back and take that job. And the hammer drove through the nail. I forget what the expression is, but at that Newsday event, there was a luncheon table, because they had a lunch for us, because we were selected to come. It's whole big thing. It's like hundreds of people that were selected to come, supposedly to get jobs. And somebody mentioned to one of the reporters, who was a reporter for Newsday, I think her last name was Gray, I can't remember what her first name was. They said to her, what do you think about this internet thing, this .com thing? And I sat there quietly, and she said, so I think it's a fad, it's gonna blow over, and da-da-da-da. And then somebody was like, in my voice, in my mind was like, you better call Chris back and take that job. Take that job, because she don't know.
She don't know what she's talking.
I called Chris back, and I took that job. Now, mind you, he turned my resume, he gave me my resume back. And I actually think the reason I got that job was because I was the only one. Because when they started to really gear up and started getting press coverage, now we ran a Super Bowl ad. That was like a turning point. The money that they spent in that Super Bowl ad, the membership just rolled over like I don't know what. They had offered to give us kind of like pay incentives if we did referrals and stuff like that. So every referral I had was Black, but it wasn't just that they were Black. New York University had the first new media master's degree course. And I knew several people then, so a couple of Black people in it. And I referred people from that program of the first graduating class, and they never got past HR, but they did hire some people, and they were white males. And when they would start, I was like, do you know so-and-so? And he said, oh yeah, I'm real cool with her today. So it's like seeing a company balloon around you and get an HR, and the HR came out of corporate America. They stole HR from, I think, Disney. They stole certain of our executive teams, they stole from CBS. But they brought a lot of that corporate baggage that they had just left. So as the company grew, even those of us who were the first hires, we were a ragtag crew. Like, it wasn't that it was a lot of people of color, but even the white people there probably wouldn't have been hired by the corporate version that would later become, because they were city people. There was Alex Ballard. He grew up in East New York. He was the only white kid with a crew of Black kids. I mean, but they're talented people. Right. But they were that hodgepodge that didn't fit into that as it grew up and Blue became. And so they were equally frustrated when the company grew, and we had all these different managers who didn't know how to check email and all kinds of things, and they were making all these corporate decisions. And then you have the complexities of having older investors into younger founders, and they were trying to get us to sell refrigerators to 18-year-olds. Things just didn't make sense. So, and then you had the Globe.com had the highest first day gain IPO ever. That was what they're known for, and then we completely tanked like after that for the next couple of years after that until they completely went under. but you have the demands of the one thing that one of my founders, Steph Penner, had right was when he was trying to get Mark Zuckerberg's ear. It was like, you might not want to go public because the strain that it put the company on to go in the directions of with the board of directors and shareholders, which was not necessarily our user base. You know, we had a younger user base and they just wanted to have fun and commingle. Maybe we did some cruise ship trips that would have lasted a little bit longer versus trying to sell them mortgages and things like that. So there was a tremendous amount of strain. I think the founders were under to kind of deliver on promises on one end, and then there was a strain of the people that they put in HR and the people that they put in were basically hiring their ragtag friends from corporate America to fill these, and they were getting paid to kind of file their nails as the company went under.
So Deidra, thinking about all of that, then what you have going on is this new incubator, right?
Well, we're trying, and I'm trying to take all those lessons that I learned from having worked, and I worked a little bit in corporate America too. I was an Inroads intern, so the lessons that I was able to pick up, you know, as a very young college student interning in two corporate 500 companies, the background that I have in education, the work experience I've had in technology, what I know that our community needs is an incubator, an accelerator of our own to kind of fuel the next Facebooks and Twitters and stuff that just happen to be helmed by Black heads. Because essentially, you're not going to get diversity until you have diversity at the top. You're not going to have more women hired unless you have a woman that's very conscious of it. It's not just that. It's not as simple as that. It's not to say that you don't have diversity if you had a white husband, but you're more than likely to have if someone who's very conscious of the fact that they know that there are professionals that exist within our community that they can, bring more of our people into it. Because I think there's a lesson to be learned in this COVID-19 kind of world that we're in. The reason why our community is affected so much is because we're not in corporate. We're not working virtually. We're in service-oriented careers.
Right.
If you're a professional, you're a teacher, you're a nurse, if you're fortunate enough, you're a doctor, but those are still communicating things. If not, then you're a bus driver, you're a taxi, you're retail, you're home care. So we're in these places which you can't necessarily work from home. With the exception of Talisha and my husband who are in insurance. So y'all got out. Y'all made it. No. but for the most part, we know how rare that is that, we still have computer scientists among us. I'm not saying we don't, but most of our peers, our friends, even attorneys and stuff have to, interface and stuff. So the professions that we have, it's not us dealing with data or dealing with computers as much as we are dealing with people, and that puts us at great risk.
But at the same time too, don't you also find that in your circles, we got the best ideas though? We got those use case, we got those, problems that really need to be solved. But like you said, a lot of times we just don't have that infrastructure set up where we can do exactly what I trust your incubator will be doing, is taking great ideas and allowing them to be built out by people who can do it.
A lot of things. I mean, some of the startups have just things that work in any market. I mean, if you look at, like I mentioned before, Sarita's project, or Eduardo's, which is basically the predictions market for, if you've heard of fantasy sports, this is fantasy Hollywood. So it's predictions market game centered on the Hollywood sector. Some things work in any space, they're mainstream. And then other things, if you take Jamari's digital reserve, for instance, the goal was to, his primary goal was to eliminate predatory lending within our community. That's something that's specific to us. If you look at, I spoke very briefly with the founder of Kobo Coin, which is like basically the first coin created, digital cryptocurrency created by a Black person. And his main goal was, look, I'm Nigerian ancestry, and I realized that, remittance fees are very high going from African nation. We don't do African nation to African nation, but even from Nigeria to the West, what I want to do is create a cryptocurrency that could cut that down, so it makes it more competitive to what hasn't been provided through central banking services. So we're more conscientious of financial issues that impact us and better suited to, not necessarily better suited, but more conscious of creating ways to remediate that. And I found that out also at the Black Blockchain Summit. One of the people I spoke to was, I forget her, for freeze her last name, but America, she's, Puerto Rican descent. And she was at Black Blockchain Summit, and we actually sat in the break room for a long time as she explained the dynamics of Puerto Rico, and saying that before Hurricane Maria, they weren't even allowed to have solar power, and explaining how there was such a need for supplemental insurance for the Caribbean nations to have, and especially in the light of FEMA's, not being able to service them quickly in terms of Puerto Rico. What if there was a supplemental blockchain insurance? But her framework is, I am Puerto Rican. I've grown up within the context of having family there. I know what the difficulties are. So that kind of her key into solving blockchain part based on her ancestry, and then further impacting that for other Latinos and other ancestry, you think differently. And I think that's the key to diversity, is that you think differently because of your experience. If you've ever experienced having family in the Caribbean or Africa, and you have difficulty getting money there, even using the traditional means of Western Union or, the new products that are arising, one of the first things you want to do is solve that, because it shouldn't be that difficult. So with the incubator, one of the things that we want to do, in addition to educating developers to actually come into the space and incentivizing them to come into the space to work for some of these Black startups in terms of work study capacity, but it's also to, bring solutions to African nations, Caribbean nations, and then just to create brands. There's no reason why there shouldn't be a Samsung equivalent that just happens to be helmed by a person of African descent. If you look at African Americans, we're 42 million people. If we considered ourselves a nation, we'd be the 11th largest African nation. And we have nothing. There's nothing that we can name aside as being participants in other people's brands that we can say, this is what we dominate. We don't have an airplane. We got some independent hotels, maybe, Salamander or something like that, but it's very fragmented. We don't have this type of sector that we can bring to the rest of the world, even as a major ethnic group within a major Western nation. And that seems absurd. Yeah. And then if you add to the absurdity the fact that, all the African nations and Caribbean nations don't have anything either, then that dynamic has to change. We can't constantly be looked at as consumers all the time. This is the reason why you have this weird justification of, Chinese kicking out Africans because two came sick. But the disease started where? Right. But they look at us very differently, as if to say, well, in the back of their minds, the dominant culture, that's not about the individual Chinese, but the dominant culture is one in which, well, Black people globally don't really contribute anything other than being consumer or participant in somebody else's project. So I think if you, and it's really weird that and I wish I had saved it, I actually came across a Malcolm X speech in scrolling through Instagram. Somebody has this little speech snippet coming, and he's giving about the African American Unity Organization, and he specifically names the Chinaman, and he says, people used to say the Chinaman was weak, but now look at them now, because they realize how they contribute to the world. And he kept saying Afro-Americans, and then he defined Afro-Americans as everybody Black who wasn't in Africa. And then he says, we need to produce industries. But I was like, when I watched it, I was like, he could be talking right this minute.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Very moment, right?
What he was saying was, in order to have the world's respect, you have to be a producer. And we know that it's not always our fault while we're not producers, because we always get the extra loopholes. But we've got definitely, now this is the opportunity of this blockchain, we definitely have to fight like crazy to bring something to the table.
I know you have a partnership with Mouse Belt to help kind of move this along. So how does that fit into the incubator space? Or how do we start to think about companies that will dominate? Because you have to start from a point and move towards that. So what would you, how does Mouse Belt help you with that? And where do you think we should go?
Well, we had actually developed our lesson, our pitch deck based on observing what was going on in the Valley, specifically Berkeley Blockchain Lab. Didn't really look too much at Y Combinator because I don't like how they're set up. But we were looking at a lot of places in the West Coast and seeing how different blockchain companies were being incubated. And what we were noticing, Arizona State University is big. I mean, they back Dash and a couple of others. A number of universities, mostly in the West Coast, are really behind the blockchain brands that we know. They're from their, whether it's from their alumni or from the VCs from alumni, they're dumping a whole lot of money. So you have the instance, I always like to give this example, and I don't know him personally. I've never really talked to him, connected on LinkedIn, but I've not talked to him. But you have the case of Sean Wilkinson's Storage, and eventually Storage was able to build up, a VC of $30 million. But then Filecoin, which is Juan Bennett's project, which is being incubated by like 3 different universities, probably last year, 240 million, 1 million. So who's going to last longer?
Yeah.
And it's basically a copy of what Storage was already doing. So Storage has to struggle with less.
Yeah.
And then you have the tale of not having Black investors invest in Black leads. So I know this is my opinion. Let me give my opinion as an outsider, as having watched, because I saw this happen in the .com era as well. Just watching Sean in this, someone who comes out of Morehouse, reason why you don't see a lot of Black investors, he didn't bring the money. He got the money, but if you have white people investing in your startup or in your dream, they're going to bring their people. This is your new head of this. This is your new head. So now you almost got to fight within your own company. Now this happens with the white boy things too. This happened at theglobe.com, and they all have white investors. But if you have, MTV, when I was with theglobe.com, one of it was MTV, Blockbuster, the Blockbuster video head guy, Michael Egan, and a couple other people. But these people made demands that you brought in this. So if you have a Black-led startup and none of their funding is coming from Black people, you're not really, you become a poster boy for your own company, or you really have to fight for that slither or that side, or you get pushed aside because somebody else coming, we brought in this year, this is the new CEO. And we kind of, I hate to say my opinions, that we kind of saw it over the summer when all of a sudden the Storage name dropped off for a little while, and they went with tardigrade, and then all of a sudden you saw it come back a little bit, and then now it's like Storage Labs. So Sean is with the Storage Labs component, but tardigrade is the old product, which was the original Storage product. So you see a little just sitting back, and I kind of know what it is because I've seen it before. I've seen it happen during the .com era as well. So we really need to get, those who are saying that they're investing in technology that are Black to look into our blockchain ventures first, because at least we're dealing with, if we have to fight, at least we're dealing with some people have the same shared goals as we do in terms of bringing something to the table. So Mouse Belt, by the time I learned about Mouse Belt just before Black Blockchain Summit 2019, so earlier that August. And Mouse Belt was the first blockchain accelerator in the United States. And they have a strong education component. I think their investment dollars put up about 40 million or something like that. They have the investment. And then they have the second half of the company, which was fostering and supporting startups, incubating startups. And my introduction is to Ashley Meredith, who's the head of the education component. And she said, look, Deidra, I know that what you're doing is exactly what we're doing, but I also know that we have this content that we're offering for people to use for free. And we have not been able to crack the HBCU market. And I'm telling you, it's not even easy for me to crack the HBCU thing. She was like, maybe you'll have a better chance at getting the students, because we created this stuff, getting to use it. Doesn't cost them anything. And if they have a startup, while we have the funds, let them pitch it to us. Pitch it for us to get funding. Then you get yours on the roll. And what I'm finding as a lot of the Mouse Belt ambassadors that they have there, every single one of us is trying to do an accelerator model. So you have some that are in Ohio, you have some that are in Singapore, you have some that are in you have some in different parts of the United States, and everybody is realizing either it's town related, kind of like what Kirk with brain fog. Gerald Newkirk is doing in North Carolina with the blockchain genesis type thing. You know, even though his is more like a tech hub, but it's also blockchain focused. He's trying to create that Cape Fear area, so blockchain thing. So either it's regional based, trying to bring industry to Cape Fear, which still impacts a lot of Black people there, but it's also ethnically diverse, or it's, you know, Black specific, or it's Mexican. There's a lot of Mexican groups that are in there. Mm-hmm. We're all trying to create our own accelerators because we realize that in order to bring wealth to the community, you have to have something that pairs education with the fostering of development of real world startups at the same time, this type of work-study relationship. So all of that comes from my background. So Mouseport was a very good pair because she was a very, Ashley and the rest of the team, Tyler also, so they're very, you could be very open with them. You know, you could be like, this is what I want to do. And they'd be like, good, do it. You know, so it's none of this like, well, you with Mouse Belt now because you stopped talking about Black people in crypto. It's nothing like that. They, you know, cheerlead what other people are doing. They're like, look, we're just the ones that got funding. And we want to push this, you know, theirs is more of a national, you know, international, actually. They've got, okay. Like I said, mentioned Singapore and other places and stuff like that. And they really believe in blockchain education. They really believe in helping brands. And then also, you know, it's a potential for it's a small team. It's not a lot of them. It's like 6 of them or 6 or 7 of them. You know, it gets them, you know, early seeds into some startups if they pick the right combination. So it's about their own personal family wealth, and they're all young. There's some of them, you know, actually, she used to be a college professor for a while, but, you know, they're all in their 20s. And it reminds me of me like 20 years ago. so, you know, it's an interesting group to work with. Jamari Peterson had encountered them at an event, and he was like, Deidra, I think you need to talk to them because they're already going, and let's see what we can bring to the table. So while we're looking for funding, and we're constantly looking for funding, we're looking for people to pay attention to actually understand what we're doing and invest in what we're trying to do, we can at the same time offer the students, you know, actual content until we can create our own content, actual avenues to talk to some of the Bay Area startups that are existing, because they have like about 10 or so different partners. Stellar, Ionix, Tron, you know, and then the people can actually talk to the executives. The kids can actually talk to the executives there. They have mentorship schedule hours that you go into the calendar of the person and say, I want to talk to this person, and you plug yourself in. Nice. Now, kids being kids, do you think they're doing this?
They don't know what they have, right?
We're going to all go back to school. We're going to all do new majors. Sheree always says, pick a major. We're all going to pick a new major and enroll.
Right.
So
exactly. If your startup doesn't work, they might hire you. Just talk to them, please.
Oh my God. So and that's always how it is. They never know. Well, Deidra, when you said something about not liking how something about Y Combinator. How are you doing something different? Or what was that thing that was the rub with their way?
The thing that turns me off about Y Combinator, and they're not the only one that does it, but this whole showbiz, I actually think, and that's what does pitch deck competition. I think pitch deck competitions are dead. I think, and the reason why I think that they're dead is I harken back to my own experience. The 2 founders of my startup who started up their startup when they were students at Cornell, and by the time they hadn't even graduated, they would go back to, I worked for them in April. I started working with them in April 1997, and they would go back to March at Cornell that summer in August for graduation. Yeah. They already had $6 million. And they had investors from the head of Blockbuster, Michael Egan, who also owned the Miami Dolphins. They had a couple of million or something from MTV rather, and some other places. Then they would eventually get some more, 20 something, whatever, before they even get to the IPO stage. They ain't never seen no pitch deck stage. They did judge some. So the people that I was around were the founders of iVillage, which was the women's network at the time, and some others. All these people that are hosting, even Mark Cuban, he ain't seen no broadcast, he ain't seen no pitch that day. So it's all showbiz because of Shark Tank that this is the way to go. And I remember at the tail end of my experience at theglobe.com, when I was just thinking about leaving, I actually went down to Howard. Howard University had some type of, it was like a first like black pitch deck thing, because the pitch deck, it was all the rage, whatever, white day. And I remember going, and what I remember was sitting in the audience, and I went by myself when I stayed in a hotel, and I could tell you how long it was ago, because one of my nieces is a junior in she's a junior at Morgan State, and she was born that weekend. I wasn't home when she was born. So that's how long ago. So she's like, what, 20 or something like that. So I went down there. I remember it was in the auditorium, and they had these, you know, so-and-so's, a VC, this, some of this, or whatever. And the money was $500. It was like chump change compared to what was going on in New York, right? So I remember sitting and watching this, and I remember there were some African students that had proposed. They had got on the stage, and they said something about money transfer, and at this time remittance being so high, and MoneyGram and stuff, and they had a way to send money by email, and they explained the whole thing, whatever. And then when it was over, the person who won was the girl that had pitched like what I was just leaving, which was an online social media thing. And all I could think of is like, I don't remember if Black Planet had launched or Black Planet was about to launch, but it was at that height in which people were just beginning to know about different social media platforms. So she won the 500. And I remember stopping those African kids, and it was like, y'all won. And about 6 months later is when PayPal dropped. And I said, well, I'll be daggone it.
See, they're great ideas.
We just missed this boat because this was what they were talking about. Now, they had to have known it because they were in the discussion groups of all these people anyway. So a lot of times there's a rush of people doing the same projects because they're talking about how to troubleshoot certain things. So PayPal came along about 6 months after I saw that pitch that they were doing. But it always seems like we were always kind of behind where we should be. So the reason why I think the accelerators are important is to get us up to speed, because we're not that far behind. Well, in a ways we are behind. We're behind in looking at ourselves as an ethnic group that's worthy of self-investment and creating of industry.
Right. Very true.
You're winding down here, so tell us how we can support you. Most of us who already do, but some of us need to know where we can reach you and what we can do to help to, you know, specifically with your accelerator project.
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to connect with me. It's, you know, whatever the URL is, linkedin.com/in, and it's just my first name, Deidra. That shows you how long I've been on LinkedIn. Deidra. I said,
you got in
that's probably even better than the Black People in Cryptocurrency group is on Facebook. But I don't always check my DMs too well. And Facebook is kind of funny if you're not connected to you, whether you see those, they go into other folders, just kind of a pain in the neck. But I know if you're trying to connect with me, then I can see those more readily on LinkedIn. And then we're looking to talk to equity investors and get the ball rolling. I know that I could, you know, show them different models, whether it's showing them mouse belt. I'm still I'm still a great fan of Berkeley Blockchain Lab, Arizona State University. It's funny, when I'm in my group, I really don't talk about the things that I like too much because I don't want to influence people. Like, oh, Deidra said, and she has this group, let me go buy a bunch or whatever. But I really like Arizona State University and what they did to incubate Dash. They actually have a couple of different things, but I actually like from the organizational side of a university working with a company and how they incubate. They show a lot of stuff in their blogs, kind of like what they did from. So it's not necessarily, oh, Dash Crypto is the best, but just how they got them to ramp up so quickly. I like that. And people need to be aware that sometimes some of the cryptocurrency projects that are being brought, you know, at different conferences at different universities has a lot to do with that. Your university might already be investing in that. They're not necessarily upfront, because I've seen some things before and it's like, oh, you know, well, this professor from Johns Hopkins is going to talk about this thing. And I'm looking, I was like, of course he's going to talk about this. They just gave them 40, because I'm looking at the money. And I'm like, because they're invested in that. I'm like, in cash, that's a no-brainer. You invested in it. So it's not a coincidence that you have different professors talking about different cryptos, because if you look at where they put the university put their money in terms of sometimes labs are university driven as well. Which is fine, because one of the things that I learned from talking to one of the Howard University professors is that, you know, the HBCUs really need to ramp up on patents. Because the whole endowment, expecting that to trickle down for any programming is just not working for them. So, you know, just for people to be mindful that sometimes that different schools and different campuses are putting on something with one coin or the other coin is because they either took a check or they've given a check. And with our schools, we usually take in checks. So that's not always the beneficial place to be in. So just wanting to talk to people about how we can get the ball rolling. I mean, we mentioned Y Combinator earlier, and the funniest thing is they had said, I think it was recently a news story saying Y Combinator is thinking about doing everything virtually. And I was like, that was my plan all along. All these schools are all over the place. I may only get, you know, three or four engaged students from Howard. And sorry, you're going to have to work with 3 or 4 engaged students from Hampton and 3 or 4 from FAMU. And you're all on the same project. But that's awesome. The real world of crypto. This is how these DAOs work. These DAOs are virtual. You got people in Europe and people in South Korea and people or whatever are working together. So this whole idea that it's supposed to be at one campus or one university, well, maybe your university benefits based on the number of students from university and it splits it out that way. So we really, you know, serious people that, you know, even if we have to start with what is Bitcoin as an orientation, that really see the potential and the value in us incubating technology companies in the blockchain sector.
Got it.
Love it. Excellent. I love it. That puts us at 8:30 on the dot, guys.
Oh, man.
Any questions for Miss Deidra? If not, we will respect everybody's time this evening. We got it in right on the dot here.
Right in on the dot.
I wasn't even looking at the comments. I'm like looking now.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody said, Cherie said, I like Arizona State's blockchain program too.
Awesome.
But the sales probably, it's a really good program.
They were wonderful. And again, I do like that collaboration. I think, again, they have a wealth of, you know, kind of that hunger that to make that happen. And again, that willingness. And we do have to start somewhere with regard to pairing that up together. So if there's a funding aspect and just that learning opportunity, I think that's a great kind of, you know, ecosystem to formulate some new ideas.
Yep. And you have another teacher, because curriculum development was right on the spot. I was like, oh, you know, some of this curriculum out here is horrible. and here's something to note too. I had some information from the Howard University professor, Howard Shern, who I was talking to. And his conception was that, you know, just with African Americans, is that we just need to start in technology education so early, like 6th grade, 5th grade, some type of side program that someone is, you know, getting them engaged and ramped up so that by the time they're in high school, maybe they've already earned some Howard credits that go straight, you know, to you know, and because he was like saying from his perspective as being, you know, an engineering professor, even comparing the Black students that he has, the African American students are usually the furthest behind in math skills and the furthest behind in developing, even compared to international Black students. So he's, you know, in many ways he's very upset and depressed about that there isn't that fire that people should have and should see in the potential of a technology education. So I keep all of those, every time I talk to someone, I keep all those little notes in mind in thinking about, okay, we're doing here, but what if our developers are just not ready yet to be able to take something? How do we get them ready to take over in terms of helming the CTO role of a startup.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you, being in the high school level in a public school setting, traditional, it's just traditional education is the problem. Everything is isolated. It's not collaborative. It's not integrated. You just about have to graduate to have some experiences to make sense of everything that you just learned. So it's a relearning kind of thing. So it's really the education as a system, as a sector needs to be reformed, so that it's an integrated, authentic learning experience as you go through, tied to something. So kids won't be wanting to drop out, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So as long as we're doing that, like you started off talking about, connecting with what they already know, getting them involved with solving sticky problems right now. That's how we keep things interesting in the education space at this point. And collaboration is a 21st century skill set, transferable skill that we just have to develop. I mean, we got people on their phones just looking right at their phones. That's not going to work. Okay. You know what I'm saying? We really have got to be able to collaborate and meet minds. And so it just requires a lot of change. So programs like these, like you were talking about, need to be really part of the fabric of everyday school setting. So that's why I'm kind of like, this COVID-19 situation is really bringing the relevance to, collaborative learning, online learning, just distributed, groups and all this kind of stuff, which is just normal, everyday business in the 21st century at this point. And it shouldn't be brand new. It really shouldn't be brand new.
Yeah, and the other thing we wanted to bring to the attention in terms of Black people in cryptocurrency, in terms of, because I talk so much to the different startup founders, the ones that have been in it since 2009 and 2000, they're very frustrated. It's a very frustrating experience when I can think of at least two I wrote an article called, basically it was a pitch deck article talking about Black people's experience in the pitch deck scene when they started. And two of them, David Benjamin and Sarita Hines, when they won money, it was outside of this country. And it's very disheartening to be, a person of color who can't get any attention from any wealthy Black person. They can't get any attention. And then you go to Europe. David was the first American country to win a European Union competition that he got an innovation award for distributed computing. And Sarita Hines also won overseas. She's won some in the United States as well. But those who are winning pitch deck, we're not winning. There's nothing that's coming from our community. Casimir Patterson is another one, Sneaker Cred. She had won her first, as I was writing the article, because I was looking for people to write about, and somebody else that had pitched said, well, I'm not doing anything right now related to my project, but talk to her because they want to go to competition right now, and I think they're going to win something. And she won $35,000. And an intellectual property attorney. And I say that to say that they're also besieged and under attack. She's under attack. I mean, her project is the first to bring non-fungible tokens to sneaker design. So non-fungible tokens are just kind of like basically putting art or collectibles collections into the blockchain space. And she's basically going to have to fight Nike by herself. It was basically her idea. When she was, student, she was pitching it around. And see, this is the thing they don't tell you, is that when you're going around pitching it around the time, then a VC takes it, and all of a sudden they're walking over saying, I came up with this idea. So she's fighting a lot of intellectual property issues. She was in a rush, and she actually finally did it. And she said, I did it, very quickly because I knew Nike was coming out and saying that they were going to do these non-fungible tokens, but she said there's no way they got that idea unless it came from somebody that I had pitched and they took it to them. But she's fighting a lot of Black startup founders are fighting battles on their own that they shouldn't be fighting on their own. They should have a community that says, no, you can't do that to this person that brought this into this space. So that's the other reason why we stress so much about the startup founders and teaching the developers to help the startup founders, because I'm hearing a lot of stories from them about I literally, from Eduardo once sent me a screenshot. He was like, Deidra, I've been doing, I don't know if you know, he did it the first time when he had his demos. He does these like Twitter type games. And he's like, let me send you a screenshot. He was like, this one company, they basically changed his red background to yellow and then imitated his whole game. And he was like, this is my baby. This is what I've been dealing with since 2013. And I'm doing it because I know that my MVP is coming back, because he had to catch the first one because there was some bugs, and that was the first one I participated. So he's ramping up for the second one, and he was like, we just get our stuff taken like left and right.
You really are bringing up a really good point, which we talk about a lot of times in Black blockchain consultants, is how much we need people who are not just coders. We need people to bring their professional skill sets. We need those attorneys, those Black attorneys that are looking out for us. So, I'm going to throw that out to anybody listening. Like, seriously, this is the way we need you. We need your existing skill sets, and we'll get you into the blockchain piece. But my God, we got to keep our ideas together, because we definitely are creators with regard to all of that kind of stuff. With constant creation and innovation going on amongst our conversations, and certainly in a pitch scenario, and I kind of agree with you too. I feel like a lot of times when there's only one thing to win in a pitch scenario, you've heard a bunch of great ideas and they all are viable in their different sectors. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think agree with you on that.
A bit, the competition that Casimir Patterson was in, she won like 35, it totaled 35,000, but she won in different realms. So she won 5,000 here, 10,000 here. But by the time it added up, it was 35,000. But all the people who participated in this, I think it was in the San Francisco Bay Area, was a game type. It's a different type of pitch. Is that people knew when they came in to compete, they had multiple avenues to win. Best of this, best of that. That's a little bit better than a person takes all, because then they get the feedback, well, you didn't win this because this was deficient and this was deficient. Right. So she won a couple of different things. Sometimes she came in second, sometimes she came in first, sometimes she came in third, but it was different criteria that they ended their pitch in, and her cumulative was 35,000 and an IP attorney, whereas other people may have won more and other people may have won less, but that's different than this kind of all or none, and let's go to this boot camp, and and we train you in a weekend, or whatever, and then get ready to pitch. That, I think that needs to die. It needs to go away, because it's really a form of entertainment. You're not fostering the development. When you think of places like Singapore, do you think that Singapore has come out of the tech into the tech space because they had pitch tech competitions? Not. I think not. Not so much. They singled out who they could go with and who they could ramp up for, and they supported and they cultivated and developed, which is something that we do in education. So that is going to be, I mean, you want to have a little bit of competition because you want people to kind of, hey, let me put my best foot forward, but it shouldn't be what's become this gamified situation. That's what kind of repelled me from Y Combinator, but it also in Berkeley Blockchain Lab, kind of the way they do things is more of a grooming educational component. They still have the competition, but they're trying to bring everyone, up to a certain standard. So I
see that, and that what you're describing there is exactly what I'm talking about. What I think education should be about for everything, that is an authentic learning experience that's, with a true audience. So things seem legitimate and authentic, not just doing work for the teacher, kind of stuff, But yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I take my hat.
We could talk all night, couldn't we? Sorry.
I feel like I'm just conversing, because I'll call her, be like, can I call you? And right here, we just chat all night long. But thank you so much, Deidra. We really appreciate you coming by. And we have contact. If you don't, we'll help you again. And we'd like to thank everybody for showing up this evening.
Thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
Thank you for having me. And Eric, I hope to see you when you do your NFT, because I'm still learning. Kathy is constantly sending me stuff. Look at this.
Look, when you said that, I was like, here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking. See, we go. But no, all right.
Reach out and get Casimir on. Casimir Patterson. she's connected to me on LinkedIn and Facebook. She's Sneaker Cred is her she's the first to bring sneaker templates in NFT Ethereum platform. She's a graduate of the what do you call it, consensus type program in terms of development, and she would be, she may be sharing a whole lot of stuff. She's kind of upfront. Well, first time she sent me stuff, I was like, I can't put that in an article. But she was like, this person stole this. I got receipts.
We definitely
what? I'm naming names.
No, this is what we're gonna do. No, this is it. We're going in 100%. Deidra, like, first of all, you're a prophetess because you were reading my mind because I was this is that lady's name. That's what the whole time I'm gonna say.
Casimir Patterson, and
Perfect.
Sneaker Cred is SNEAKRCRED because it leaves out the E. Sneaker Cred. But
Okay.
you can find her NFT, and she's bugging me now about some new stuff, because they're already trading her thing, and she was like, this Twitter guy, he made like 15 ETH and all kinds. I was like, what? For sneakers aside, it's like it's a whole different world for me. But yeah, I'm probably double backing. My next article is probably going to be another gaming article, because they actually have, when we're in a stressful time, sometimes the cathartic type properties move a little bit. A lot of people are standing still, but the cathartic type, the time's kind of stressfully so moving forward. So some of the gaming people between Eduardo, her, and Jamari, and Whitney Griffith are also involved in Finite Games. They actually have some movement going on with them. So I might throw them all in one article just to talk some of the latest stuff that they're doing.
Okay, perfect. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, this was tremendous. Thanks for your time.
All right, take care.
My LinkedIn invite or connection.
I will.
All right.
No problem.
All right. Good
Take
night
care.
now.
Good night.
Here.